If you weren't into macro videography before this video, I hope this changes your mind. Believe it or not, I got all of those shots with the Sony ZV-1 with an old 50mm lens that I pulled out and dusted off from one of my camera bags. It's a pretty known fact out there, when you flip a lens around and put it on top of another lens, or you put it on top of your camera body, it turns into a macro lens. So I utilized that rule to see if it would work with the ZV-1, and I was pretty surprised how great it worked. So I put the old 50mm lens like this to my ZV-1, and it enabled me to get some really cool macro shots. But I didn't want to have to hold it like this the whole time. I took a lens protector from one of my lenses and I carved a little hole in it like that. So that it would be able to fit on top of the lens of the ZV-1. And then I just put the 50mm lens inside of the lens protector like that, so it would hold it together. So it looks something like this. Now, this is by no means strong enough to hold the lens up, but it does hold it in place. And it keeps it at the perfect amount to where I can just walk up to anything and quickly zoom in, set my manual focus, and get some really cool shots. The way that you accomplish this is you zoom your ZV-1 all the way forward, because if you don't, you see that little black hole. But once you zoom it up, it disappears. And then you have about this much area to play with. Now, your focus window is extremely small when you use this setup, but that's okay, because as long as you play with whatever object you're trying to get, you can get some pretty cool shots. I'm gonna show you exactly how I got some of these shots, and I'm gonna show you the methods that I was using and what I was thinking about going into these shots. Now, if you're not into macro videography, I highly recommend you think about it, because it opens up a whole new world of creativity. You can literally go anywhere in your yard, in your front yard, in your living room, and you could have a blast using this setup. So now I'm gonna show you exactly how I got those shots. So we caught this little iguana, and I thought it would be the perfect way to start off the video, because they're so cool, number one, but number two, we had the sun directly above us. Normally I hate direct sunlight because it's so hard to manage when you're shooting video, but in this case, when you're shooting macro videography, it worked out great, because the more light you have get into the lens, the better. So now I'm gonna show you how I got the shot. I wanted the sun to be shining on the iguana's head, and I took it at a side angle. So I found this spot right here that had some sunlight to it. Like I said, the more sunlight you have, the better. And I just let the sun hit the iguana at the side angle. If I was here, you would see the shadow from the camera. If I was here, you wouldn't get the eye. So you almost want your light to hit your subject almost at a sideways angle. That way your lens doesn't take the shadow of the iguana. Okay, ready? I'm shooting on 120 frames per second so that I can slow it down. But if you really want to get creative, you can shoot in 4K, 24 frames per second, so you can punch in even further to what your subject is. I did this on a couple of shots, but I liked to be able to slow it down because it really made it smooth and it just made it more cinematic. Let's go to the next shot. I'm looking for that feather, but I think it blew away. Okay, here's something that'll work. So this isn't any feather, but it's a weed, and it acts the same exact way when it blows in the wind as a feather does. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get nice and close. Now, one thing about this focus ring, if it's in like this, I almost have to like touch the subject to the glass. So I always go like this because it gives me a little bit more play. When it's in, it's a little bit more crisp, but this one gives you more of a focus window. So I like to use this because then I can just go back and forth when I move it. So another thing to think about when you're shooting macro shots is you want to know about your background. So right now it looks good because you can see the subject as a defined object. Whereas if I was to move it over here, it would be harder to see it because it's inside the blur of that tree. So just something to remember. So this is like what we talked about in the camera moves video, where we're actually gonna keep the camera still and let the subject do the work. So one thing that I love to do when I'm doing macro videography is little water droplets or dripping water. So I have this little spray bottle and I saw this leaf. I thought it would be a good place to spray some water drops on it and kind of just wait for it to drip down. Get as close as I can because I want to get that drip. And once I'm in focus, spray a little bit more. There we go. Now, a little bit of water got inside this lens, but it's okay because it's only 60 bucks. And I checked on Amazon before I made this video. They still sell it. So you can also purchase this lens if you want so that you can achieve some of these macro shots. I'll also put this little lens protector where I got it from in the description so that you guys can also purchase that. So I actually want to explain to you guys about the manual focus when I'm using this setup. And what I do is I let the autofocus take control as soon as I punch into my subject. Then as soon as I have exactly what I want in focus, I switch it over to manual focus, and then I just move the camera back and forth. So for this shot, I used the same water bottle. I sprayed some droplets on this weed right here. Then I'll switch it over to manual focus, and then I'll come up from underneath it. Just like that. And that's how I got that shot. Now let's go to the next one. So for this next shot, you're gonna need everything we talked about before and a cat treat. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a little cat treat right here, wait for her to get it. And then just go in for the eye or the whisker. Got it. Then after that, you give her a little pet and you move on to your next shot. Originally, we had a little string attached to this car, but the string fell off, so I'm just gonna use a little stick to push it. So I do the same thing that I normally do. I just put the car up at the edge like this, so I can get a little deeper with my lens. I'm gonna get focused in. Go ahead and hit the manual focus. I'm gonna record it, and then I'm just gonna slowly push it. Try to keep it as close to the edge as possible. So as you can see, it's all very simple stuff. I'm shooting in 120 frames per second, so I'll be able to slow that down and really smooth it out, and maybe even throw a stabilization plugin on it, do a little color correcting, and it's gonna look amazing. So the bottom line is that macro videography is very possible to do with the Sony ZV-1. You just need a couple extra accessories to make it happen. And you are very capable of going out and getting shots just like I did. It took me probably 2 or 3 hours to come out here and just look around. And before I knew it, I had a lot. And I didn't even show you guys everything that I got. I just showed you the best stuff that I got. But it really does open up a whole world of creativity for you, whether you're inside or outside, wherever you are, because there's an entirely new world right underneath your feet that we just don't see because our human eyes are too big to see. But once you start going down deep, you'll see some pretty cool and amazing things. I'm Joe with POTTERMAE, and I hope this video helped you better understand how much opportunity is out there when it comes to creativity. Whether you're using the Sony ZV-1 or another camera, you can just do so much, and you just have to think outside the box. Thank you to all of my subscribers for all of the support that you give me. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new to this channel, you might want to consider subscribing because we talk a lot about crazy filmmaking stuff. As always, I'm Joe with POTTERMAE, and let's grow as we go. Peace.